You ride with the column as the twins rise out of the gray morning mist, and the first thing you notice is that the river smells like cold iron. The causeway stretches ahead for half a mile, flanked on both sides by the Trident running fast and dark from recent rains. The Stark host moves in loose formation around you. A few thousand soldiers, bannermen, servants, and the wedding party itself. All of it compressed into a single column threading toward a castle that belongs to a man who has been insulted and made to wait. The Frey towers are the color of old bone. They straddle the crossing like something that grew there, waterlogged and patient. And the only way through the Riverlands is over that bridge or around it by 50 miles of bad terrain. You have grown up inside the direwolf's shadow. Not a Stark by blood, but close enough that the distinction stopped mattering years ago. You trained in Winterfell's yard. You ate at their table. You marched south with Robb's army, because when the wolves move, you move. That is the only loyalty you have ever understood. And for 2 years, that loyalty has been enough to keep you upright through everything the war has thrown at you. Robb rides near the front, quiet in a way that is different from his usual quiet. His hand moves occasionally to Talisa's, then pulls back, as if he keeps remembering that other men are watching. She is visibly with child. You understand what he is protecting. You understand why this wedding to Edmure Tully's bride has to repair the Frey alliance, why Robb swallowed his pride and sent the ravens and made the arrangements. There was no other way across. Grey Wind will not enter the gate. The direwolf throws himself against the iron bars until soldiers drag him, snarling, into a cage set outside the castle walls. You watch it happen and file it somewhere in the back of your mind, beneath the relief of being under a roof again and the smell of roasting meat drifting from the great hall ahead. Animals know things that men have reasoned themselves out of knowing. Lord Walder Frey receives the column from his chair at the far end of the hall. Ancient, slack-mouthed, surrounded by so many sons and grandsons that their names blur into a single indistinct mass of Frey faces. He makes his jokes. He leers at Talisa. He presents bread and salt. You eat. Everyone eats. Guest right is the oldest law in Westeros, older than the Seven Kingdoms themselves, older than the Wall, older than almost anything that can still be named. Beneath a host's roof, having consumed his bread and salt, you cannot be harmed. The gods themselves are said to watch over it. You have believed this your entire life, without ever having reason to test it, the way you believe in the solidity of stone without ever checking whether the stone beneath your feet is hollow. You pour wine. You find your seat at a lower table, wedged between a Frey guardsman who will not make eye contact and a Stark bannerman from the Umberlands who is already deep into his third cup and talking about how good it will be to sleep indoors. The hall fills with noise and warmth and the smell of tallow candles. Edmure Tully's bride is unveiled, and she is not the horror anyone feared. She is young and dark-haired, and she smiles at him with something that looks almost genuine. The hall exhales. Cups are raised, then the music shifts. It happens slowly enough that you almost miss it. The tempo drops, the melody changes, and from somewhere in the back of your mind, where things are stored without labels, the tune surfaces and names itself. The Rains of Castamere, the Lannister song, the ballad about a lord who defied the lions and was erased from the world so completely that his very castle was sown with salt so nothing would ever grow there again. You know what the song means. You know it the way you know what a sword being drawn sounds like in the dark. And yet your brain refuses to finish the thought, because you are sitting inside a host's hall having eaten his bread and salt, and the ancient law says you are safe, and you have always believed in the ancient law. Catelyn Stark hears it before you do. You watch her hand go still on her wine cup. Just still, not tense, the particular stillness of a woman who has spent her whole life reading rooms. Her eyes move across the hall in a slow, deliberate arc. She is counting something. You follow her gaze without knowing why. The doors boom shut, The sound hits you in the sternum a half second before it reaches your ears. The Umber bannerman next to you looks up from his cup. The Frey guardsman beside you is already standing. Catelyn moves. She grabs the arm of the Frey lord beside her and yanks back his sleeve. Chainmail. He is wearing chainmail under his wedding clothes, inside a feast hall, under guest right. In the 3 seconds it takes your brain to process what that means, the crossbows fire from the gallery above. You drop. Not heroically. Your legs simply stop holding you and you go down, sliding off the bench and under the table, cheek pressed against the rushes, heart slamming so hard you can feel it in your back teeth. The bannerman from Umber folds sideways above you with 3 bolts in his chest, his cup still in his hand, his expression the face of a man who has been interrupted mid-sentence. The wine spills. It spreads across the rushes and finds the dark edges of what is already there. The sound is not what anyone told you battle sounds like. There is no glory in it. It is screaming, and the wet percussion of iron finding flesh, and the crack of overturned tables, and underneath all of it, rhythmically, the thunk of crossbow mechanisms being cranked and released, patient as a heartbeat. From the floor, you can see boots, Frey boots, moving in organized patterns between the bodies and the overturned benches. 8 of them working through your section of the hall alone. This is not chaos. This is a list being worked through, methodically, the way you work through a supply inventory. These men know exactly where they're going. Through the forest of chair legs and fallen bodies, you find a sightline to the high table. Robb Stark is still standing, arrows in him, sword drawn, not looking at the men killing him, but at Talisa, who is already down, already still, one hand resting open on the stone floor. He is looking at her the way a man looks at something he cannot change and cannot accept. You stop watching. You start moving. You crawl. That is the complete, unadorned truth of what you do. You, who swore to serve the Grey Direwolf. You, who trained in Winterfell's yard and told yourself you would stand when it mattered. You crawl through the rushes and the blood of the people you marched 500 miles with, keeping your face down, keeping your elbows under you, moving toward the kitchen passage door you spotted when you first came in. Halfway there, a hand closes on your arm. It is a Stark soldier. You know his face. You have shared camp meals with him. You have complained about the rain together on a dozen nights. He is badly wounded, dragging himself toward the same door with one arm gone limp and useless at his side. He sees you. He reaches out his hand toward you. You look at it. You look at his face. You look at the door, 15 feet away, with no Frey boots between you and it. You open the door and you go through it alone. You tell yourself he would not have made it. You will spend years not quite believing that. The outer yard is lit with torches and smells of cold river air and burning pitch. Frey soldiers are moving through the courtyards with the efficient calm of men following a plan. You pull a cloak from a body on the ground, Frey colors, rust and gray, and you walk. Not run. Running is a confession. Grey Wind's cage is at the far side of the yard. The direwolf is alive, still throwing himself against the bars, howling with a sound that carries across the river and probably for miles beyond it. A cluster of Frey crossbowmen stands at a careful distance, watching him, working up the nerve. You understand in this moment that the wolf was caged out here on purpose. Someone gave that order before the column even arrived. Someone planned every detail of this down to where the dog would be when the killing started. You walk. You keep walking. The bolts go into the cage all at once, the way cowards do things. In a group, so no single man has to own it. The howling stops. The yard goes quiet in a way that feels like something being permanently extinguished, like a word leaving a language. You keep walking. You do not look back. You find the river an hour before dawn, following the sound of the current. There is a skiff tied to a post at the bank, and you untie it and push off into the Trident and let the water take you south. The cold soaks through your boots immediately. The sounds of the twins fade to nothing. The mist closes in. In the silence of the river, you take full inventory. Rob is dead. Talisa is dead. The child she carried, a child who would have been the next king in the north, dead before it had a name. The Stark host is shattered across the twins and the riverbank. The northern cause is finished, and you are alive in a stolen skiff wearing a dead man's cloak, because when it mattered, your instinct was not to stand, but to get small. You piece the rest together over the days that follow, hiding in barns and eating what you can find, absorbing fragments from other survivors moving in the same stunned silence through the Riverlands. Rose Bolton, the Lannisters, the Frey grievance, held for years like a coal in a closed fist, finally useful. The North was not defeated in battle. It was sold to men who understood that honor is only a shield when your enemy believes in it too. You stand at the edge of the neck for a long time, looking north. South is safety, obscurity, a new name, and a quiet life. North is a home that no longer exists in any form you recognize. You go north, not because you have hope. You go north because south is the direction you have already given your cowardice, and you have nothing left to give it. The road disappears into pine forest, and the air turns cold and clean, carrying the specific smell of the north. Ice and distance, and something underneath that has no name, but that you have known your entire life. You are going home to find out what is left. 3 days into the north, you stop at a burned holdfast beside the road. A farmstead, recently abandoned, its timber roof caved in, and its hearthstone cracked from the heat. On the wall above the hearth, someone has scratched 3 words into the stone with the edge of a blade. The lines are rough, urgent, made by a hand that was shaking or in a hurry. The words read, "The North remembers." You stand in the ruined holdfast for a long time. Outside, the wind moves through the pines with a sound like something breathing. You did not survive the twins because you were brave. You survived because you understood in the space of a half second that the rules everyone agreed to protect were only ever as strong as the willingness of the worst people in the room to honor them. The Starks died with more dignity than you will ever carry again. They played the game honestly in a room full of people who had already agreed to cheat. You pocket a piece of the charred hearthstone. You walk back out onto the road. You keep moving north. There have always been red weddings. Moments when the laws that were supposed to protect everyone turned out to only apply to the people who couldn't fight back. The question every survivor faces is whether the rules were worth anything at all, or whether surviving them was the same as proving they weren't. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.